Hello everyone, welcome to one more interesting session on machine learning. And today we are going to understand what is pre-processing, or we are going to get started with pre-processing for building a ML model. So machine learning is one of the most buzzwords of this century. Not only organization but people or resources are looking forward to learn what is machine learning because it's hugely in demand. Before we get started, let us have a quick round of introductions about myself. I am Krish and I am having an experience of 10 plus years in the ML field on machine learning and deep learning projects, and I work with different domains. Let's see what all things we are going to cover in this session today. We are going to build models using machine learning. Okay, so for that we have to understand what is pre-processing, or why is it required to pre-process data. Okay, what are outliers and how do we handle the missing values which are present in the data sets. Okay, what is standardization, normalization, and how do we create dummy variables. And also we are going to touch upon some of the algorithms which we have. So let us get started on this. So as we have learned earlier in our previous session, like when we think of building our data model, we need to have some data in place. With that data, we do apply some smart techniques using these algorithms, and based on these algorithms we get a prediction. This is in short, and also what happens, like in case your prediction doesn't look good and there is some errors, what we do, we again start with the training the model, and finally get a prediction unless we are happy with our results. So let us know a little bit more of what all things are going on inside the data modeling. As I told you earlier, when we get data can be of any form. Okay, and data is represented by different kind of variables. It can be numeric, it can be string, it can be a tuple, it can be a list, it can be an integer, it can be a float, or it can be a boolean. In any kind of format it can be. So what we do with that data, we first thing that we do pre-processing of the data. What is pre-processing? Pre-processing is something is like a data cleaning part, or standardizing, or making the data ready for your model. That is what pre-processing is all about, and we are going to talk in details about what are the steps involved in pre-processing, because it is one of the major steps for building a model. It contributes to, you can say, almost 60% of your efforts, which is all about pre-processing. Once your data is pre-processed and is ready, we do a train test split. What is train test split? In train test split, I mean like you have your entire population of data. So out of that data, I take some portion of the data and I trained the model with that data. Once my training is fine, the rest of the portion, I test that data whether the model I have built using the algorithm is correct or not, and that is about validation of the data. In case my data, I'm not happy with my results, so again I go ahead and change some parameters. Okay, so all these things we are going to learn, and again train the data, and finally test out our model. And once we are happy, your model is finally live. Okay, so what is pre-processing? In pre-processing, there are lots of steps involved. Suppose, like for example, you are thinking of preparing rice. For that you have to make some ground preparation, like you have to boil water, you have to acquire rice, and most importantly you have to have a gas oven in place. Next thing that you have to do pre-process, you have to wash the rice so that no dirt comes in while you are cooking. So the thing that you are doing, it is again pre-processing before cooking. So similarly for the data point of view, when you get data, you have very unclean data, or might be a case some of the informations are missing. So we have to make changes to that data, or modify it or transform it, so that your data is ready, and we can go ahead and process the data and do our analysis with that data. That is all about pre-processing. We have been talking about accuracy, we have been talking about validation. So what is validation actually, and how we find out how my model is performing, or what is the accuracy? Because when you build a model, the objective of building a model is you first validate the model, whether based on your test data it is performing well, and you check the accuracy, the number of marks the model is getting for their performance. Suppose you have 100 number of cases. Out of those 100 number of cases, like you find like around 60-70 odd observations are correctly mapped, or correctly it is predicting. So you can say 60 to 70% is your data accuracy. So what is the accuracy formula? Number of correct classification or number of correct results by total number of test cases. This accuracy will apply for only classification problem, because in classification problem you have either it can be a yes or no, it can be blue or green, it can be win or loss. So it can be either correct or it can be wrong. So in that case it becomes very easy to check what is the accuracy percentage. But for a regression problem, when we are checking what is the value is going to be, or predicting what is the value is going to be, for that we have a different score for checking the accuracy. We have R square. Okay, so we are going to talk about that later in our course. Okay, so how the model happens? So we have, as I told you earlier, we split the data in some portions. Like majority of the portion we take it as our training data. It might be your like around 70 to 80% of the data we spent for training this data set. And in that training data set we use machine learning algorithm, and finally we build the model. So once we are happy, here also you'll get in the model you have different statistical values you are going to see. Once your model is ready, you validate it using the test data. That is, what is validation? You again with the trained data you build the model. So you use the test data which is remaining, like 20 to 30%. You test it out whether your results are going correct or not, and from there you find out if your validation, this is the validation thing, and from there you get the accuracy. Accuracy is number of correct classification over number of test cases. So this is for a classification. For regression we tend to find out how close there are. So that is find out like what is, like for example, my actual, like as I told you earlier, I want to build a model so that I predict the price of the house. Okay, so again I have trained data and test data. My test data says my price of the house should be around say 90Ks. Okay, but my results gave me, like it has given me 75Ks. Okay, so the difference that you are getting, okay, so that is the difference of 15Ks divided by the actual of 90Ks. This is how you find out the accuracy for classification and for a regression problem. I'm going to show you those how we get the accuracy in later in the course. A bit more about the pre-processing of data and why it is required. So when we pre-process the data, we are talking about structured data. What is a structured data? Structured data is something which can be have a structured format, or can be in a tabular format. So the data which we generally use, like it can be numeric, it can be categorical. Okay, so first you have the data. The next thing, the job is to consolidate the data. Because whenever you are building any model, you get data from different sources. The first job is to have a flat file. Otherwise, like for example, if your data is spread over different tables, it becomes very difficult to build a model where one information is present in one table and second information present in a different table. Suppose I want to build a model to find out what is my churn rate going to be. Like for that, my table 1 contains customer information, table 2 contains the transactional information, Table 3 contains product information. So when I am building a model, I need to have all these 3 tables joined. All these 3 information are vital for me. So what I'll do, based on the customer information and the transaction information, I will map them using the transaction ID. Now for the product information and the customer consolidated information, I map it using the product ID, and once those things are joined, so we have a consolidated data. So that is also a very important part, or very important job of a data scientist, or for that is also part of pre-processing, where you create a flat file or a consolidated data. So once you have the consolidated data, you find out whether your data is clean or not clean. For clean and not clean, we have got different tests and different parameters to understand whether your data needs pre-processing or not. So not only we do pre-processing, but also we do a couple of transformations if required.
We have been talking about like working on structured data, consolidation of data, and requirement of cleaning and not cleaning. Why do we have to consolidate the data? Reason is data comes in different formats and in different sources. It's not that you will get just one file to work on and you just upload it and you start working. No, that's not going to happen. You have data which is collected over different formats, over different data sources. So as I was telling, you have got like customer information, transaction information, product information. You have spread across different data tables. Like if you have worked in SQL is the best data management tool, where you just based on different tables you get to work on, you compile the data and you have the final data to work on. Let me just tell you what is a join. We have been talking about like how we consolidate their data, but how do we combine these tables? So if you have worked in Excel, you know what is VLOOKUP is. It's like you have got one table and using one of the identifier you bring the another information from another table. Similarly, in SQL or in Python, we have got what we call a join. What is a join? In join, we have an identifier based on which we are linking both the tables. For combining different tables, we do the function which is known as joins. There might be different kinds of joins. There can be inner join, there can be left join, right join, outer join, full outer join, and so these are some of the joins which are available. So I'm not going to talk in detail about the different types of joins, but I'm going to show you how it is done. I have got 3 different files. I've got customer details, product details, and transaction details. So my job is to first create a consolidated data. Let's first have a look at these files, and then I will understand how I go ahead in joining the files. So your first step is just open any of the files. Let's open the first one, customer details. So I can see I have got customer ID, contact number, name, email, order status, product ID, and FSN ID. Okay, so we can say like these IDs can be our identifier. Okay, like customer ID, product ID, and FSN ID. FSN ID can be talked about like it's like a transaction ID. Okay, product ID, yes, this will work. This will also work. Okay, everything is clear for me. Okay, let's open the next file. So I have the product ID as well in this file. So okay, so you're getting based on these. So this is the product details file and this is the customer ID file. So we can combine them. That's great. And look at the third file. So okay, we have got FSN ID as well. Okay, it makes sense now. So based on FSN ID and product ID, I'm going to bring the customer details in on these files. So when I'm looking at information, I want to understand what this customer has bought during the during a certain period. So for that, the join where you are or the VLOOKUP that you are going to here I'm working in Excel, so you cannot apply a join. So I will be using a VLOOKUP in this case. So you have to understand what is your base file is going to be. Since I'm talking about customer product details and transaction details, I'm more concerned about like the duration is for which duration. Let's suppose I'm taking for a couple of months duration. I want to see what the customer has bought during that time. So for that you have to make sure like the transaction details will be my base file, not this one. This is a product details, because based on which I'm going to do my join. So if you look at, so what I'll do, I will select the Feb month and March month, and this is the information which I am concerned about. So because had I taken the customer details, I would have got the distinct information. So you have to based on the data, you have to understand what this data is talking about. Like in customer ID, there are slim chances where a customer might have duplicate columns, but in transaction ID, in transaction details, there might be a case where a customer has bought a couple of products, so that's why it has generated multiple transaction IDs. But I'm not going to talk in details about these things. So it's like based on your first judgment and based on your first analysis, you're going to understand. Let's create a new file. Okay, and I paste these things what I have based on the duration I have selected. The next job what I'm going to do, so you can close this transaction details file because this is done. I can name it data because this is the first set of information that you're looking for. Then I have got the product details. So I'll be concerned about the product MRP, okay, and the category and all these things. So I have to bring these in my compiled data. So what I do, I have to do I bring the column names. So I go to customer details and I select the first few column names and I paste it here. So I have to do a VLOOKUP here. So VLOOKUP, you just freeze it, customer details 2 3 4 5 6 7 comma 2 comma 0. Okay, then this will become 3. You see everything is coming up. 3, this would be 4, this would be 5, this would be 6, this would be 7. So what I do, I just copy that and paste it here. So okay, these informations are not available. Next I have to bring product IDs. Okay, so how do I do that? So this one is done, product details, I have the product ID and I just bring these things. Again similar logic, VLOOKUP, this one, product details. Okay, I just forgot to freeze here. Break the links. Your file is prepared. Let's close the rest of the files. It's not required. It's not required. So my final data set is ready. Let's clear the rest of the things. So for a data scientist, the first job is the first job is to data compilation. Okay, so that is done. The next thing is all about pre-processing. Okay, so the requirement of a pre-processing. So if you just have a look at this data set, you'll find a couple of /n's, a couple of #NAs. Okay, what has happened? So if you look at this, just browse through it quickly, you'll find there are a couple of #NAs, there are a couple of /n's, and might be a case there are not sure whether they have any blanks or not, we are going to find out later. Okay, so this my file is ready. So now what my job would be is putting this data into the Python environment, and once the data is in the Python environment, I will start ahead with my pre-processing. Okay, let's move to Python now.